Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome here to the Daily Quest number 39, where today we're going to be talking about Valla. But holy crap, before we get there, it has been one heck of a week for Blizzard fans in general. Mainly Heroes people. Like we had the Spring Championship announcement this week, and then Blizzard came out with a patch yesterday, just out of nowhere, patching a bunch of heroes. Small changes, but it's a really good patch overall. And then today they reveal two new heroes. They reveal Necromancer Zool, and they reveal the Diablo 3 Wizard Mei-Ling. Or Mei-Ling? I forget which the proper pronunciation is, and I will correct that for the future. And, you know, I'll be doing a quick video on them later today, you know, just kind of giving the rundown exactly how they play, but really, really awesome news. Just like, you know, Blizzard seems like they're just, I don't know, launching a ton of stuff. And then after that, we had Overwatch announced there's a new game mode coming out. So as a result, Overwatch beta is going to be delayed, or the return of the beta is going to be delayed until probably February. So, you know, not too much of a surprise. February is really not that far away, and some cool stuff going down. But man, I am so excited for those two new heroes. They really do look quite good. The other thing to point out is I am now partnered with G2A, as you can see. Brand new partnership rocking out here with G2A, and basically it's just another way that you guys can support me, and in turn, if you know the support is solid, that could translate to supported tournaments. Who knows? But that's just another awesome benefit here for the stream at this point in time, because G2A offers stuff for all kinds of games and it's a great resource. But let's talk about Valla. Now, Valla is a hero that's been quite viable since she was released. She's always been an assassin with flexibility and a place in the competitive meta. At no point in her existence has Valla been considered a poor hero, and actually, she's one of the few assassins that has two heroics that are often, you know, quite good. Now, we don't really see Reign of Vengeance all that frequently, and in general in North America, we consistently see one style of play. But there are definitely three ways that she can be played really effectively. In Asia, we often see auto attack style a little bit more. In North America, it's really always multi-shot lately. And Hungry Arrow builds do pop up here and there. Europe's always a little bit more flexible. Europe playstyles are always a little bit more dynamic, in my opinion. So let's actually just take a look at like the three standard builds that exist for Valla. So like we said, Valla's been around since the game launched, right? Actually, if you pre-ordered Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, you got Valla for free, and Heroes wasn't even in alpha yet. So that's how long Valla's been in the game. The Demon Hunter from Diablo 3 multi-shot build is pretty darn straightforward. When you're looking at the build, you go for the increased 20% range on multi-shot at level 1. You go for the arsenal where you have the grenades that launch out, 3 grenades go out. They do a little bit of burst damage if they manage to connect, but those do have to connect individually with your multi-shot. Generally speaking, level 7 is up to your preference for most Valla builds. But for the multi-shot build, it's pretty much considered Searing Attacks is the best option. It just gives her more damage as a whole. Hot Pursuit could be interesting if you want to go for that, but Searing Attacks is going to give you the superior damage. Valla's already a pretty mobile hero. She doesn't necessarily need that movement speed. Level 10, almost always see Strafe out of all players. Almost always. There are situations where you would pick up Reign of Vengeance. Now, those situations are where you have a dire need for stun. No one else on your team. You're playing quick match. You don't have another stun in your team. That sounds like so incredibly unlikely in the current state of the game, but you know, maybe you desperately need to interrupt that mosh pit. Maybe you desperately need to interrupt something that's a huge threat in the enemy team, and you'd consider Reign of Vengeance. That's one option. Another option is if you have something like Void Prison or Maw, and you can trust one of your allies to really land a huge combo from the Maw or the Void Prison or something of the sort, and then you can follow up with Reign of Vengeance for that big stun. But to get the second stun off, you often need a slow or a chain stun to go with it. So this is something that really does benefit more from coordination and coordinated play, and Strafe is generally speaking just going to be the safest option for a lot of damage dealt, and it is a ton of damage, and it's a pretty short cooldown too. I mean, a 1 minute cooldown, and it's 90 seconds for Reign of Vengeance. So that's also another big thing to consider when it comes to picking your heroic. When you're going multi-shot style, you will 100% of the time go for Frost Shot. Now, you're getting the additional range by 20% at level 1, and then at level 13, you're throwing a 40% slow for 2 seconds on that multi-shot. This gives Valla so much capability of kiting her opponents. It's just great control. It's huge. There's synergies with Executioner. Now, that's kind of gone extinct in the current state of play, but it's still very, very powerful talent there, especially with the other multi-shot talents. Level 16, you can be a little bit flexible here if you want the Blood for Blood to really just absorb a lot of health. Like if you cast Blood for Blood and something like a Cho'Gall as Valla, you heal to full. Like you can go from being almost dead to just about full health with Blood for Blood. Stone Skin is also nice just because it's like it's a less situational thing versus another assassin with a low health pool. Stone Skin can be very good. The additional charge on the vault is nice. I don't know if it's really the best option in this build. I think you generally want to go for something sustain oriented. Blood for Blood is damage and sustain, and Stone Skin is better if you know you're going to be soloing, dueling against other assassins in some situations. When it comes to level 20, Bolt. Just with this build, you want Bolt. Like Bolt is just such a good talent. Like it should be a longer cooldown almost. It's such a good talent. I could even see Bolt being 90 seconds and still being as viable as it is, just because of how unanimously strong that talent is. Let's move on over to the middle build. Hungering Arrow style. Probably the least common style of Valla that we see played across the board. And this is largely due to the nature of Hungering Arrow. You shoot an arrow out and it will seek 2 additional enemies, meaning it doesn't necessarily hit one target. It kind of has its own rather unintelligent brain that wanders around and hits whatever the hell it sees. It just charges and smacks things. I don't know who programmed these arrows, but they're not the best. But that's obviously the design of the character. I'm not making a stab at the developers. I'm talking about the actual salesman, that's selling Valla these arrows. Like, why are they so weird? But anyways, when you do this build, it's about having really strong dueling capabilities, and it's also about having a lot of burst. So Valla, you generally want to go for siphoning arrows. Now, although Valla is a little bit mana hungry when you go Hungering Arrow build, this is by far the most mana hungry build. Siphoning is just really good. It's 50% of all damage dealt as healing, and that's a ton of healing. But you might say, well, if she's got mana problems, why would I not go for cost-effective materials to reduce the mana cost by 30? That's a huge mana cost reduction, especially when you want to do these burst styles. When you have this build whole fleshed out, you can pretty much use your whole mana bar in one fight. And cost-effective materials does help, but the healing is far more impactful. And you can always go back to base as long as you win the fight, and especially when it comes to late game, that healing is so very valuable to have. Level 4, a Puncturing Arrow. It's just gonna, increase the bounce. You get additional range and you get, an additional bounce. Really strong talent, just means more damage overall and more flexibility with the ability. Level 7, you actually want to go for Repeating Arrow. So this allows you to cast Hungering Arrow twice. Pretty straightforward. Why would you not grab that? You're just going to be able to shoot your Hungering Arrow. You can vault aggressively or defensively. Generally, you don't want to use it offensively, but in some situations could be very good and get that second arrow off. And again, that's double the healing with that level 1 talent. So although you're spending a crap ton of mana to do that, you're doing a lot of damage and healing yourself up rather well and shooting out tons of auto attacks in between. Level 20 or level 10, we already talked about the heroic debate here for all of the builds. It's unanimous. And then generally speaking, I advise going for Giant Killer when we get to level 13. And Giant Killer is just really good in general. Even though it's not an auto attack build, it's a great talent, but there is a case for Spell Shield. So if you're facing Kel'Thas, Jaina, they just announced Wizard today. Meleeing is going to be coming into the Nexus very soon. That's going to be a lot of ability power on that hero. And Nova's there's more and more ability power heroes as the game is expanding its roster. Spell Shield is becoming more and more viable in a lot of situations, or not even viable, but like a necessity to really sustain through their damage. So definitely an option if you're worried about survivability. 16, you want to look at, once again, Blood for Blood and Stone Skin as good options, but if you want to go the full, I'm going to deplete my mana in a single combo style, you would go for Tumble at level 16 for the Hungering Arrow Valla build. And this just means you can shoot at a hungering arrow, you can vault, and then you can shoot a hungering arrow, you can then vault again, and then you can shoot a third hungering arrow. But your mana pool will be absolutely depleted after doing that because, oh, it's Li Ming, not Mi Ling. Damn, guys, I'm the worst. Well, thanks for the heads up. Anyways, level 20, once again, Bolt of the Storm. You just want that. You want that mobility. You want that get out. You want to be able to bolt over the wall to get to safety and then vault away and mount and be a jolly happy Valla. And Bolt is just phenomenal. Last but not least, we have the auto attack style of Valla. And the auto attack style is pretty darn straightforward. Level 1, you're actually going to go for Rancor. And Rancor is just an additional attack speed. So you can get up to 10 stacks of Hatred. That's your trait. And then each stack grants you 1.5% auto attack speed. So up to 15% auto attack speed at level 1. So Valla, you know, when she's kind of a hero that wants to stay in combat. She's kind of a hero that benefits from, even as you're running around, hitting those random walls that exist that don't necessarily have a point other than keeping you out of the base of the fort and out of the base of the keep. You want to hit those minions as you're running by. You want to be able to stutter step really effectively when you play Valla using this build, and just keep the stacks up as often as humanly possible because it benefits your damage as a whole, and you don't want to lose your hatred stacks. You just want to be as angry as possible when you're playing Valla. Look at those red eyes. She is not a happy camper. Like, no, not at all. Music. Yes. Level 4, we are definitely going to go for Manticore. And we're talking about having 15% additional auto attack speed, but then you throw a 50% critical hit every third shot. So you're hitting more often, and then your third shot is going to be a crit. Really strong talent. You could also make a case for Vampiric Assault in the event that you're playing Quick Match and you do not have a support on your team. If you're really worried about self-sustainability and you opt to go an auto attack build rather than the Hungering Arrow build, which does have a bit of self-sustain with it as well, you could choose to go for Vampiric Assault. You're sacrificing a good amount of damage, but you're giving yourself a lot of survivability, and when you don't have a support, generally speaking, that is the right choice. Level 7, now you could make a case for Hot Pursuit. And Hot Pursuit is, once again, you're going to get, it's a movement speed. But this is not a movement speed that scales. Now, at level 1, we talk about the scaling of Rancor. It starts at 1.5%. And that's going to go up to 15%. But at level 7, Hot Pursuit is just a strictly movement speed bonus at 10 stacks of Hatred. You get a 20% movement speed bonus when your Hatred is maxed out. So you don't slowly get faster. You just get this buff when you have max Hatred. And it's definitely like a good talent. It definitely gives Valla like a lot of mobility, a lot of capability to kite and everything in general, which is great. But searing attacks is generally speaking going to be the better option. This gives you just a huge amount of burst. You talk about searing attacks paired with Manticore, and you can just shred through your opponents like they're nothing. Level 10, once again, we've already discussed that. And then level 13, it's like 90% of the time, you're going to go for Giant Killer. You're already speccing into autos. This just amplifies your autos even further, and you just want to get those auto attacks to do as much damage as possible. At 16, again, the options exist for Blood and Stone Skin. Blood for Blood, generally speaking, will probably be the better option, but you never know. If you're facing those assassins, and the enemy team has like no high health heroes in a random quick match game, you probably don't want to get Blood for Blood. It's not going to get that much use done because it's all about the size of their health pool in terms of how much healing you get back. Stone Skin is 30% of your maximum health. So kind of got to do some math, you got to just kind of think about the situation as it presents itself. In level 20, this is the one time you would consider not getting Bolt. I like to get Nexus Frenzy. It's just 20% attack speed and range, and it makes Valla so freaking fun. Now, if you want to have the most fun of your life, you would go for Hot Pursuit. You would go for Manticore with Rancor and Nexus Frenzy, because then Valla is just like this super agile auto attack machine that just shreds everything she looks at, and it's a very, very fun play style. But overall, I mean, she is a rather flexible hero. She is one of the when the game had a pretty restricted hero pool. Valla was one of the heroes that we used as a base point of what design should look more like. And, you know, the recent releases of heroes have much more dynamic kits. You think of heroes like, there's a lot of them. I can't even make it, even just Greymane's kit. It's very, very flexible. He's the newest hero added to the game. And there's a lot of great talents. But early designed heroes didn't see a lot of diversity, but Valla always has. And all three of these builds are very much viable in the right situation. But we are going to take a look at a replay of what we tend to see here in North America. And that is the multi-shot style. It is probably the easiest to execute style of Valla, I would say, just because it has the most lane clear. It has the most immediate impact of just, you know, casting your multi-shot. It does a lot of damage, and you can cast it from a good range and just successfully hit a lot of targets when it comes to those team fights. And it's just, you know, it's tried and true at the end of the day. So we're going to boot up a replay here. I forget which teams are actually playing in this replay. It is, in fact, from Esports Arena Heroes Rising. Once again, all week we've been featuring those replays. And it looks like it's actually a replay with Cloud9 versus Tempo Storm. How fancy! This is an all-American esports action with an all-American Valla build. Okay, well, loading on into the game. On the left side, we've got Cloud9, and Arthalon, once upon a time, was Tempo Storm, then Bob Ross Fan Club for a very short period, but he is now Cloud9 with his allies K1 Pro, Dunk Train, iDream, and King Caffeine. All rocking their Cloud9 mounts. So fancy. And on the right side, it is Tempo Storm with KO playing Zagara. We have Zix on Karazim. Soldier will be playing Jaina, Saray on Leoric, and Goku rocking the Tassadar. Now, the new patch came out yesterday, and the patch actually pretty much broke the Blizzard Observer interface for replays prior to this patch. And due to that, I've actually reverted back to Aliabs, which hasn't been updated since something like November. But it works out. But I see my overlay looks a little bit wonkadoodle because it's not designed for this overlay. Do I have... Yes, that works. Nice. Esports. All right. So, right off the bat, we can see Arthalon going for that composite arrows at level 1, and this is all about that lane clear. He can just cast those multi-shots. It's good for cleaning up the creep spread, and it's good for lane clear and just presence in general. The additional range, very useful. You can poke with it. He's getting the creep tumor from a very safe distance, and it's just very good utility at level 1 right out of the gates. So we'll keep an eye on how he builds it. Actually, we know exactly how he's going to build it because it's pretty straightforward. But we'll just have to, you know, see exactly how successful it is versus an auto attack style. Now, Saray is leaving. A-okay. You know, Leoric's kind of hard to lock down. He's got that sweet Drain Hope. He's got that sweet Wraith Walk. And that makes him pretty hard to kill because he's got a lot of sustain and he's got a lot of escape. Guys, now that I'm back on Aliabs, I don't want to go back to the Blizzard UI. I miss being able to pull up the hero portraits on the left here and just kind of like look at their stacks, quickly click on them. Screw the Blizz UI. I'm sticking with Ollie's. All right, Dream in the front, doing a lot of damage from rotation here from King Caffeine, looking for that Stormbolt. KO's in a bad spot. The heals, are they there in time? No. Tempo Storm loses their first hero. Cloud9 gets one on the board. Valla with a rotation. Arthalon just cleaning up and farming. Now, she doesn't have anything like Seasoned Marksman where she can continue to farm up into 2 lanes. If she had that, would that be better than something... Would that be better for the auto attack style? I don't know. I really don't. You can see the 10 hit attacks here as well. That's another nice thing about having this UI. But I really don't know if it would be worth replacing Rancor at level 1. Arsenal has been picked up here at level 4 as predicted. Now we've got those little grenades that accompany the various shots of the multi-shot. And Muradin, Dwarf tossing in King Caffeine. Stormbolt connecting onto Soldier. Soldier trying to get behind the wall. KO will fall once again. 2 deaths on KO already. And a great start here by C9. Multi-shot just being annoying and pushing things out, and then Arthlon is rotating once again. Notice that it's mainly Arthlon as a solo, and the rest of the team is rotating as a pair, and just that's largely due to the fact that Valla is a hero that is quite safe to rotate on her own. If you think about sending, well, I guess Zeratul is pretty similar, but Zeratul is more of an ambush hero. Medic doesn't want to be the one rotating. Muradin doesn't have the same kind of lane clear early game that Valla does, so he doesn't want to be the one that's responsible for getting that soak mid lane. So Valla just works out very well. She's got the tumble, the vault to get out of the way of all the oncoming enemy attacks and skill shots, and she also has a lot of lane clear, especially with the multi-shot style. So she is very, very good at rotating between these two lanes and very safe in doing it as well. Okay, Zix with the Singularity Spike on his face, and then Dream gets hit by the Skeletal Swing, but able to walk away. Falstad controlling top. Goku popping that Oracle just to have eyes on any potential flanks. As he sees K1 Pro getting a little bit bold, he's a little bit suspicious that something might be coming his way, and that's a really just good decision making by Goku, saying, you know what, if he's stepping forward, there might be a reason to it. I'm going to make sure no one else is here and make sure I'm safe. And the moment Arthlon's there, Goku pops a shield to negate that damage coming in. Arthlon just applying light pressure because he knows he won't miss any soak here in mid lane. And then we'll actually ignore this lane and go for the fight here at the Giant Camp. The experience will be lost a little bit. King Caffeine has to back away. Zix in the front line, buying space and allows Tempest Storm to connect and collect this Giant Camp. Very well done. You know, it's not, there aren't too many supports that should be going forward and should be zoning and taking a lot of damage like that, but Karazim is one of those supports that has a lot of mobility. He knew Stormbolt was on cooldown. He knew that there was no immediate threat to him, so he was able to go forward, you know, cast his self-heal, and then Radiant dash back to safety, which bought them the space that they needed to successfully grab that Giant Camp. Cloud9, not necessarily as well known for stealing Giant Camps like a team, like Bob Ross Fan Club as a team, but they are more than happy to do it when they are capable of doing so. So they went for the attempt, but are unsuccessful. iDream will end up scouting this out. Singularity Spike going out there, and Zix realizes that the team needs some support. Looks like a 4v3 so far. Soldier caught out of position in the top, will end up losing his life, but oh man, Dream gets on the point last minute. It's gonna be straight barely getting away. Zix doesn't have the Radiant dash. He's being body blocks. Beautiful body blocks by Arthlon there on Valla. Did he actually tumble forward for that body block? I was so busy commentating that I wasn't paying close attention to Valla in general. So again, we do see Soldier dies here. Arthlon in the backside and rocking that Master Skin, and yes, they're trying to get away. Zix in the front. Valla realizes there's an opportunity. Yes, the tumble going in, blocking Zix. Is it called Tumble or Vault? I will always forget it. It's called Vault. Tumble's a talent. Sometimes I do that with certain abilities. I just mix them up. Well, either way, another great part about that hero, one of the rare situations where you would offensively use Vault. It's when you know you can pick up a kill, but that body block was very, very well done by Arthlon, and just another great part of the kit. Now, you know, Mi Ling, the new the wizard from Diablo 3 that they're adding into the game, she also has a short-range teleport, very similar to that. So she's going to be a very different kind of mage that can quickly just teleport to the side and juke abilities, but also teleport forward and block heroics. So I cannot wait to see her played by pro players in these kind of situations. Arthlon grabs the Dragonite, second dragon in a row here. Dragon Ball Z action for Cloud9, and they are marching down the mid lane, taking out these structures very quickly, just getting out of the range of this middle fort and working on this. Now, when you take the damage from the middle fort as a Dragonite, it loses that auto attack speed. It gets slowed. And so you always want to have something else tanking that damage, and that's why they chose to rotate up around the top and take care of that tower first. Then, once the minions caught up, Dunk Train actually started soaking the shots first, but once the minions were just about there, the Dragonite pushed forward and started working on the fort. Just great decision making, using the dragon as efficiently as possible. Arthlon will end up getting super low. He does knock down the wall in time. He was working on it with the dragon, and he's able to get away. Heroics have been picked up here by Cloud9. We see that big Void Prison, and we should see a strafe pretty early in this battle. No option to hold on to it. The team's not ready to commit over that wall. It is very early and way too risky for the fight right on a fort, so just decides to hold onto it. Top lane, Falstad has returned to soaking that versus Tassadar. And this is a very kind of stalemate-y fight. K1 Pro actually taking a ton of damage versus Goku, but you can see he can dish it out just as well himself. Level 10 around the corner for Tempo Storm, but Cloud9 getting their push on here in the bottom lane. Problem being is they're not soaking mid, as Soldier playing Jaina just got this wave of minions. You can see the globe expiring. That is one wave of XP that they got, which allowed them to get level 10. We can look at the builds here. Is Searing for Valla, and then Strafe picked up at level 10 for the Heroic, and then we have 7-sided with Maw, Force Wall, and Entomb. Look at this control. Look at this control. They could have gone Ring and Frost too if they wanted to go full esports, but there's a risk of overlap. So I do like the decision to not grab Ring of Frost when you can have enemies getting pushed out of the way by things like Force Wall or pulled into a Maw. If you're not fully confident, I mean, this is a very young roster on Tempo Storm. I mean, Water Ellie can't be overlapped, so I think that's probably a safe call. And of course, stylistically, Soldier is very good at flanking and getting these one-on-one situations, and Water Ellie is preferred in those scenarios regardless. Okay, so we see K1 Pro is getting the split push up top. Tassadar are going to try to defend, so that's Goku in the top lane. But of course, they have carries in here to support in the bottom. 4v4 in the bottom lane, middle lane once again being neglected. And they're just trying to escort these Giants to get some structural damage done to the towers. Killing the towers is a good amount of XP that they desperately need. 13-11 here in favor of Cloud9, and we should end up seeing the slow here. Frost Shot, yep, there it is. Frost Shot picked up by Valla, and this is just going to give her a lot of control. 40% slow for 2 full seconds on Valla. Very impactful in a lot of situations. You think about this entire team. There's a lot of range heroes that don't want to be, you know, caught out of position, and if you get hit by that slow, and then Falstad and Valla can both just, you know, kite you or chase you down with all of that big damage. You know, imagine Falstad just throwing down Lightning Rod on you, and you're slowed by 40%. What are you going to do? You're going to take a lot of damage. So, cool ability in general, good amount of control provided for that assassin. Dream taking a lot of damage himself, though, has to use that blink to get out of there, but Medic has those big heals. Caffeine diving in, VP to seclude one member, and they're working on KO, but the 7-sided strike of Karazim doing a ton of damage to Caffeine as well. Mighty Gust from K1 Pro making a huge play. Jaina has fallen, make that 2. KO goes down on Zagara, and Stormbolt connects on Ziggs. Radiant Dash on cooldown, and that's a 3-for-0. Huge Mighty Gust by K1 Pro, and we saw that power of Strafe just shredding through the team while they were all, you know, in this like mess of confusion from that Mighty Gust. We didn't really see the great, you know, power of all the control available with Maw and Force Wall and Entomb, because they were already so disorganized, and half them, I mean, 2 of them were dead just about the start of the fight, and that's a situation where Valla thrives in the chaos of a Mighty Gust disrupting the positioning on the enemy team. Valla is just kind of sitting there doing a crap load of damage to everything, and it's just really, really powerful heroic there. Strafe for Rooney. Falstad soaking bottom. No, just kidding. He went back to base, and he's now going to fly to the top lane with his mirror bro. Mid lane. I knew that. I knew that. All right, Dragon Knight just poking safely. They're waiting for the full team to be here. Arthalon being very passive. This is how you always want to use the Dragon Knight. You never want to take unnecessary damage in the front line. The moment you step up to this wall, and 100%, you take a boatload of damage. So everyone just starts launching on him because they're Cloud9 is looking to get a bit of a split style. They're pushing up bottom. Falstad has opted to go back up to top to soak that. So they're mainly using this Dragon Knight to force the positioning on Tempo Storm. They're saying, look, you have to stay here, and I'm still going to poke safely. 650 experience from that one tower. They're poking down bottom. Falstad has been left alone for a long time. He's been soaking waves of minions up here in the top. And really, we have a 3-level lead here from Cloud9. Like, this is actually kind of a stomp at this point. I didn't realize this game was that much of a stomp. Woo-wee. Usually Tempo and Cloud9, they have pretty close games together, but things have changed, ladies and gentlemen. The rosters have changed quite a bit. Blood for blood on Valla. That's going to give her all that self-sustain and allow Arthalon to go aggro. He likes to be a pretty aggressive player when he's able to do so. He knows his limits. He's very good at that. But, you know, blood for blood does give you a little bit more freedom in getting into the face of the enemy team, especially when Leoric is pretty much always alive. I mean, Leoric's trait is just, I mean, he's never dead. It's literally called undying. So, yeah, you can always get some big blood for bloods off on that hero since he's alive. Mighty Gust once again used beautifully. The Giants have been picked up. The Void Prison denying Goku the entrance and stalling out Leoric. Ma trying to be used in response. K1 Pro has to go down. He manages to pick off Soldier. KO will end up falling as well, and it looks like it's going to be a 3-for-0 once again. And Arthlon, there's no stuns to stop that strafe, doing a ton of damage. Hasn't used blood for blood yet. He still has it. If he wanted to use it on Sarai, he could have, but he doesn't even need to. He's just saving that cooldown. He knew he had the medic kills in time, and Cloud9 takes another dominant team fight with big kudos to K1 Pro and that Mighty Gust. I mean, we've noticed Cloud9 in general, they kind of rely on that Mighty Gust quite frequently. Falstad has really risen in the meta for these North American teams because of their, newfound strength and their just newfound ability to use that heroic so efficiently. Barbaros Fan Club, another one. It's like the anti-Zuna feed ability. Every time Zuna overextends, a Mighty Gust comes out from McIntyre and just saves him. Pretty good ability. King Caffeine going back home. Falstad back in the top lane. Full mana, full health, the happiest chicken in all the sea. Yep. And we're going to see the Giants picked up here in the bottom. Knights here on the left side. They could pick those up. I don't see any reason why it would be risky. There's no immediate threat. They still have this wall up, so they still have the lanes pushed out, but it seems like Cloud9 would rather get some kills. Catapults in the mid lane, giving them that presence. Looks like they are trying to push out this top lane just a little bit. Arthlon throwing down a multi-shot or two, and is going to make his way down to mid. Controlling both shrines at this point in time, Arthlon will get his third Dragonite, and he will do another massive onslaught of damage. Now, Tempo Storm actually just cannot fight. They don't have level 16, so they have to play pretty darn passively in this situation, which is why you didn't see them even attempting to contest these structures. A lot of the members of Cloud9 were just hiding. They were just making sure they didn't show themselves, so that Tempo Storm just wasn't confident to actually push out because there's too much of a risk. This is a do or die situation. They're 4 levels down, and Cloud9 has that Dragonite, so they're knocking on the door of Tempo, and let's see what they're able to do. Arthlon going straight for the core Force Wall, Void Prison, Entomb. Oh my, just cutting off the entire travel path, but K1 Pro does not care. He's just going to shoot shit from afar. Oop. And Dragonite will end up falling in just a moment. The mod did connect the 2 targets. Stormbolt buying the space for Arthlon to just back up a little bit. Insta multi-shot out when the Dragonite expires. So just getting some damage immediately, not wasting a second. And he's pushing his way back on in. Even those offensive medic grenades to apply some damage. Goku has to use that dimensional shift to get to safety. Was that even prescience? I think it was. No, he didn't spec into prescience this game. Did he? Oh, he did. Okay. Pre-science. And Cloud9 is denied. They did 4% damage to the core with a dragon. Tempo Storm successfully defends, and they'll be able to pick up their level 16 talents. Problem being is there's going to be heroic or storm talents here at level 20 in just one moment. They just gave up the dragons, or the giants. They were trying to pick those up. Stormbolt connecting on Ziggs, forced to use 7-sided strike, but it whiffs the Mighty Gust, which is a nice small victory, but they still lose Karazim in the process. Ziggs down for quite a while. Goku just trying to do a little bit of light poking, but even that slow from the multi-shot puts him in a weird spot. He can't fall back to safety the way he would normally like to. Does have prescience available still, but even the offensive grenades of Medic are becoming a problem without Karazim up. Not really a whole lot of healing available on Tassadar. Ice Block used. Where's the shield? No, not available from Goku. And Srey has to try to get out of there with a Wraith Walk, but it's going to be Zagara falling. KO is down. The bottom keep will fall. K1 Pro throwing out that hammer ring, connecting with both the out and the in of it, and Goku's gonna have to run away from that lightning rod. Stormbolt will not connect, but the offensive fly in the Mighty Gust. He just used Dimensional Warp, popping his self shield, and a 7-sided strike is barely juked by K1 Pro using the barrel roll over that force wall. I Dream very low, but Medic has the big heals there available for him. And Temple Storm members are slowly respawning. Is it enough? K1 Pro taking a lot of damage. iDream also very low. Tempo seems to be fighting like 3 to 4 targets at once. They managed to kill Zeratul, but the VP has been spent as well. 90-second cooldown there. It'd be gone for a while. Force Wall used, but King Caffeine is just about impossible to kill. Temple Storm manages to defend, but they're down to 62% health in the core. They lost a keep in the fight. They're still down a full 3 levels. and the dragon will be picked up just about instantly. We saw Dunk Train come down here, Falstead flew up, and then we have Arthlon just ready to get into the driver's seat. And notice how he backs away immediately. He just steps back. He doesn't really, he doesn't want to approach the opponents instantly with the Dragonite until his allies are there actually dancing and taunting Tempo Storm. Damn. So BM. they're just like, oh, what's happening? And Arthlon's just gonna keep dancing. Okay. Well, Entomb on King Caffeine, who is actually just wiggling back and forth because he knows there's absolutely no threat whatsoever from a Tempo Storm. They're playing with their food at this point. Soldier pops that Water Ellie on Dunk Train. We saw the Storm Bolt come out defensively, but it didn't even connect the Water Ellie. It doesn't really matter. We have Avatar being popped. Maw will connect on Muradin and Muradin alone. And the rotation, Falside flying forward. Mighty Gust pushing them back. The punt on the Soldier, putting him out of position for this fight. Is that Void Prison ready? No, 10 seconds away from Void Prison, but KO falls in Zagara. Regardless, 6 will end up falling as well. Already 2 members down. What do the Valla numbers look like? Oh yes, at the tippity top of the game, 63,000 damage done, 200,000 damage done. Granted, Valla was in the Dragon quite frequently, and it does count the Dragon Knight numbers for this, so it's not the best representation of that. Oh, straight for Rooney. Just connecting there with Soldier, and Cloud9 takes a rather decisive game. Hashtag Funyuns. Damn, this was played on the holiday patch, so we got to see the snowmen again. I missed the snowmen already. They made winning feel so happy. You know, now when you win, it feels cool. And yeah, I just won a video game. Awesome, ladder points for me. But the embodiment of Christmas of those little snowmen really brings out the joy in me. And I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. I hope Blizzard does more stuff like that. It was pretty fun. Valla, a very strong, versatile assassin. She has been around for absolutely forever, but if you didn't know, those are the 3 ways you can play her. Multi-shot Valla, the standard, very neutral build. If you don't know like a lot about the game, if you're new to Heroes of the Storm and you don't really know like the preferences of what would be optimal for that situation, and you're just getting used to Valla, go the multi-shot build. By far the most flexible, standard, and easiest to play version of Valla. Hungering Arrow, very good for 1v1 situations. If you think you're going to be laning against another hero and you just want to blow someone up, multi-shot is Hungering Arrow is pretty darn good for that. And then Auto Attack Valla probably has the highest skill cap, probably the hardest to execute flawlessly, but absolutely shreds tanks if you're facing a multi-tank composition. Once you get Giant Killer, they just eat dirt because you do so much damage with each and every hit. Valla is a very, very, very fun hero. One of my favorite assassins in the entire game, and she's been there since the start. And I usually don't say that about the old school heroes. Actually, I like Tyrande a lot. She's pretty good. I think those are the 2 that I like the most from the original Heroes. The vanilla Heroes, when Heroes launched in the alpha. Thanks so much for tuning into the Daily Quest today, and be sure to follow the channel. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. You can even subscribe on Twitch if you're feeling so inclined. I have to give a shout out to my new sponsor, G2A, and you can use the code SJAKE for 3% off. And I've even linked a few cool things here in the bottom of the Twitch page where you could get a golden tiger mount on G2A. There's some pretty cool stuff over there. And by, using the code, of course, you support me. On top of that, tomorrow we're doing EduCast, and EduCast will be community-submitted replays randomly selected, and we will be casting those games throughout the day. I'll probably cast a bunch of them tomorrow. Should be a jolly, jolly good day of Heroes of the Storm. I'll be streaming a little bit more in just about a minute or 2. But thanks for tuning into the Daily Quest 38. See you tomorrow.